This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr. Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. My guest today is Nate Boyer. Now, Nate has an interesting story, goes to Sudan, then goes to the X-ray program for Army Special Forces, goes to college, walks on, plays ball, then to the NFL, plays for the Seahawks, now is in Hollywood, and he has a important new film out, and it is called MVP. Just watched it last night. Highly recommend everyone check it out. It's powerful, it's emotional, it's raw. He is the writer, director, he stars in it, and you can find it at vetsandplayers.org. And if you're watching this the day the podcast drops, then you can also find it in select theaters across the country. So now, without further ado, Nate Boyer. All right, dude, thanks for doing this. Where are you headed right now?
Oh, thank you. San Antonio and Austin for a couple of days. And I'm going to go to New York for a couple more.
And this is all MVP. Are you in like a tour? What's going on?
Yeah, it's a mix of stuff. So I'm actually doing there's a veterans charity event out in San Antonio, Warrior Rising. I don't know if you've ever heard of Warrior Rising.
I don't know that one.
Like veteran entrepreneurship. Started by a buddy of mine. I started with an SF that was a West Point dude.
Okay.
So that's Wednesday night. And then Thursday morning, I'm doing some stuff with Fox Sports and ESPN before the Texas Longhorn Alabama game up in Austin. And then New York doing NFL Network, Good Morning Football, and just some other like Forbes and
Man, on the tour, and when can people see this? So I watched it last night. Thanks for the early look. Man, it's powerful. But when is this thing out? When can people see it and where can they see it?
It's in 35 theaters across the country on the night of September 14th. So that's next Wednesday night.
Got it.
So I know you're talking about trying to get this out Wednesday morning. I think that would be actually really cool. So it's like awesome. Wednesday night, I don't know, not a ton going on. Maybe there's an opportunity there, people can go.
Nice.
Go out to the movies.
Awesome. So how did you so we met at the Special Forces Charitable Trust event a few years back. I think it was, I want to say 2017 in LA and at that shooting club out there just north of LA, kind of off the that place was awesome.
Oak Tree Gun Club.
Yeah, Oak Tree Gun Club. I put it in my first novel after being there. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and I saw they put it in that movie. What was it called? About the dog, the service dog.
Dog.
Yeah, is it just called Dog?
I think it's called Dog.
Okay, yeah, it's in there. I saw it in the preview for that movie. But that's a cool spot, and what an unlikely place for it to be. I don't think you could. Just carve that place out of the mountainside today if you decided you wanted to build that thing. So it's probably just because it's legacy. But man, what was the path to get you here to being in this seat, to flying around for your movie that you're starring in, that you directed and that you wrote? Like that's pretty serious, with SF background and NFL and a trip to Sudan thrown in there. I think it was even before everything started. But what was that path? What was that path into SF? And where did you go to Sudan? That was not military, right?
Yeah, no, that was before I joined the Army. Actually, I went out there, sort of in the midst of the genocide. I went to Darfur in 2004, and I was in my early 20s, kind of just drifting in a lot of ways, trying to figure out who I was and if I had a purpose, what that would be, and what's my place in the world, and not really having a lot of passion, but not really any direction or path towards execution of that. And I ended up, I read this Time magazine article actually it was titled "The Tragedy in Sudan," and it talked about what was going on there. And I was reading about these refugee camps that were just filling up with people, and they were understaffed. And so I was like, well, you know what? I'll go over there and volunteer. So I called all these NGOs like Doctors Without Borders, Catholic Relief Services, Child Fund, and all of them were, they're like, well, you don't have a college degree. well, you don't really have any special skills. Like, what would you do? And I'm like, dude, I'll do whatever. I work construction. Like, I've worked on a fishing boat. There's got to be some manual labor jobs out there necessary. And they're like, well, yes, but it's not that simple. There's like a 6-month process, vetting, which I understand, red tape around situations like that. It is a war zone. Like, I get it now after going to one, that it's just not that simple. But at the time, I just was like, I don't understand the complication here. I'll fly myself over there. I just want to help. So I did. I went to the AAA in Burbank, and bought a plane ticket back when we did that, before we used the internet, the interwebs for everything, and got a visa and flew over there just on my own. Didn't know anybody, no contacts, kind of figured it out when I got there. And then volunteered for like 60 days. And it was amazing. I mean, I honestly changed me in a lot of ways, like the gratitude from everybody, the generosity from these people that had absolutely nothing. You hear so many stories, especially from people that tell our stories that don't really know about, they all hate us over there. Everybody's, this and that, whether that's Iraq, Afghanistan, or Timbuktu, it doesn't matter. There is that feeling sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, some people aren't thrilled that we're there, of course. But I think there's a large contingency of people that still look up to America, and that flag's a symbol of hope and sort of opportunity for a lot of people. And there's a reason there's a lot of people that want to come here, and so to spend that time there with some people that felt that way, and they just wanted to hear about America, I sort of gained my patriotism over there. Not that I was ungrateful for what we had, but just a different perspective, and really kind of opened my eyes and my mind to just a different way of serving, and an opportunity to fight for those that can't fight for themselves. And obviously, it doesn't always have to be behind a rear sight post. So it could be other ways. But it did lead me to the military at that time. I mean, it was 2004, the surge. And now we've got troops in Iraq, Afghanistan. The Special Forces opened this 18 X-ray program up that provided the opportunity to come in off the street and go to Special Forces selection after basic training in airborne school. And so I took that. So that's sort of what led me to the military. Really, that trip to Sudan and Darfur that kind of just pushed me in that direction.
No way. Were you thinking about it before? Were you toying with the idea before, or was it just like you over there? Did you talk to somebody about it, or what? Was it the movies? Was it like the what were you like SF rather than anything else?
Well, so at my senior year in high school, I did have a recruiter come to the house. I went over. I was checking that. I was interested in it, so I was actually at the time interested in the Airborne Ranger contract. And this is before 9/11. Yeah. You know what I mean? So time of peace. This is in 99. And I considered it not very seriously. And it just was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'm glad I didn't join at the time, because it wasn't the right time for me. Yeah. But the moment, or the thing that really hit me over there, sort of I don't know what you call it, the firing pin, I guess, that made me think, like, this is not only an option, but this just sounds right. I got malaria my last week in country when I was in Sudan. Wow. And this family put me up and took care of me, didn't ask for anything, just as everybody else did there. That's just what they do. And they were like nursing me back to health. And I'm like quarantined in this room. Like, they put me up on a cot, which was a big deal, because I've been sleeping on the ground, as many people do out there, for a couple of months, and they were trying to take care of me. And I'm like sweating bullets and freezing cold at the same time, just not feeling good. And they put this little radio in there next to the bed, and it had a Bob Marley tape in it. So I listened to Bob Marley for hours on both sides of this tape. And I love Bob Marley, but anything gets old when you're listening to it on repeat. So I started flipping through the stations, just trying to find anything else. And the only station that came through was the BBC. And the Second Battle of Fallujah was literally going on at that time. So I was getting like the play-by-play of that. and hearing about, I think the Marines were the main effort in that battle, but just hearing about, those brave men and women that were over there, leaving the States, most of them younger than me at the time, and just willing to sacrifice everything for these people that they don't know, and just in the name of what we represent and kind of stand for as a country and strive towards, and also just trying to help those that don't have not only a force behind them, but people that will stand up and fight for them. And I was just like inspired kind of in that moment. I don't know if it's because I was loopy and like out of it, but it was everything that was kind of going on from in my own life, but also like the world around me, and it just made sense. And so I came home. I didn't know about the 18 X-ray contract then, but I came home knowing I wanted to join the military. So because of that battle and because of what I heard, I went to the Marine Corps recruiting office first. Didn't have a great experience. All good. Walked across the street to the Army recruiting office. And,
really? What happened in the Marine recruiting office?
I don't remember specifically. I just remember I don't know. It all just comes down to the recruiter, man.
Isn't that strange? Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, it's like, unless you absolutely know 100% for certain what you want to do. And I had a good idea. I had read about the 18 X-ray program. So that was an option too. But I remember thinking at the time, like, I can't be a Green Beret. Like, those guys are freaking badass. Like, I don't know what they're doing. Like
Rambo, John Jay.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, it's Rambo. It's the A-team. I mean, it's John Wayne.
That's right.
So
exactly.
Anyway.
So what do they do when you walk into the Army one? Do you tell them right away, hey, I want to be SF, or hey, what's this Ranger thing? Or like, what was that all about when you sat down with the Army guys? And were they like, yep, absolutely. Here's the program. Here's how you do it. Or were they like, hey, yeah, okay, you can try, but you're probably not going to make it, boot.
They didn't say that. I mean, they were positive, but they also were trying to, of course, like sell me on something else. I don't remember what it was, but they probably
whatever they needed. Yeah, whatever they needed on their little. Yeah.
They had a few slots they had to fill and something, so they were trying to usher me that.
And we got a job for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. But I hung in there and stuck with what I wanted to do, and they ended up honoring that contract, and they did tell me if it doesn't work out, because they were honest about the attrition rate. It's most people that sign up for this aren't going to make it through, so you're going to be needs of the Army at that time. Most likely they'll send you to, if you've gone through airborne school, you'll probably go to an airborne infantry unit like 82nd or 101st, and that sounded cool to me too.
Yeah,
and I was like,
totally.
those are badass units. I would, that would be awesome. So it just sort of made sense, and I kind of went into it with the mindset of, well, I'm like, I'm not going to quit because I've already, like, my family knows I'm going to do this. And like, I don't want to, if I don't make it, I don't make it.
Yeah.
Like, I've been cut from sports teams before, in high school. It happens. But I'm not going to quit. A, for that, and B, because of the foreign internal defense side of the Special Forces mission, there is like a bit of humanitarian work and that effort. And it just, after my time in Darfur, I wanted that to be a piece of it if possible. I mean, it depends on your deployment, depends on where you're going, whether you're doing any of that or most of that, because I've had different deployments where that is a lot more you're doing. And other times it's like the op tempo is so high, like that's not what you're doing at all. And just sort of depends, but just the opportunity to do that. I thought that De Oppresso Liber motto that Special Forces has, which stands for Free the Oppressed, that really, it really inspired me and sort of motivated me to lean in that direction.
Right. Remember when I always knew I wanted to be a SEAL, but I was always studying everything I could about the military, about terrorism, insurgencies, counterinsurgencies, that sort of thing. And I remember, I probably still have this in a box somewhere, but let's say, I don't know, 96 or something like that. I made the list. Like, I knew I wanted to be a SEAL, but I wrote down like some other options, like Marine. I wrote at the time, Recon. Army. I was like, well, okay, Army, Ranger, SF, Ranger, Airborne, Infantry. I'm like, okay, that's good. Still ground combat-ish, like, focus. Right, and then I wrote SEAL, and then I was like, ooh, ships, like the backup. Like, if you don't make it to, if you don't figure out a way to get now to Raiders or whatever, in the Marine, you're still a Marine. You know, you can still do a bunch of cool things. Same thing, Army. Like you don't make SF, you know, you don't make it through Ranger School.
That's a good point,
you know, you don't make it whatever. There's still a lot of really cool things you can do. If that's where if that's what you want to do, if you want to be in ground combat type of scenarios. And then SEAL 1, if you don't make that, like you're going to be chipping paint on a ship for 4 years.
You're peeling potatoes, like
that's it. You're going to be doing it. Like exactly. So, you know, so I did write that out, and I'm sure I still have it somewhere. But obviously, I went to the Navy. Obviously, gave it a shot. But
that is a roll of the dice that I haven't thought about, because I'm sure there's a lot of SEALs going in. Like that's like sort of the mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few other options, right? Like some of the SWIC teams or.
So it used to be, I think it used to be kind of like if you didn't make it through BUDS, like that might have been an option, but now, but then the perception was that you were a BUDS quitter or you couldn't make it or something like that for all of SWIC. So now they've made it really professionalized it. Their training program is hard. Like they have I forget if it's a Hell Week or whatever. Anyway, it's difficult, and people come in now just for that program. And it's amazing what those guys learn, and all the licenses they get for ships and whatever of all different types, and all the licenses, I guess. It's really cool, but it's totally different track. So now it's not really if you don't make it through BUDS, you go there. I think they try to not take people like that actually. I think I kind of.
What do you mean? What do you mean not take people like that? Like
if you make it through BUDS, because they don't want that perception of, hey, all we get over here are people that couldn't make it through BUDS. So now they take people that are coming in just for that program, just for those skill sets. And once again, power of popular culture. That movie, Act of Valor. When those boats come in, those riverine boats come in, and they're letting go with the miniguns, and it's just like, and the guys are swimming out in that swamp, like that. I mean, that's pretty cool. People want to do that. People see that, and they're like, "Oh, awesome!" And then they're like, "Where did these guys come from?" And do a little research into Vietnam, and there's some sweet pictures out there with these PBRs in Vietnam with the twin 50s and the Mark 18 hand crank 40 Mike and a bunch of other stuff out there. Guys, there's one amazing picture of this guy, black and white, and this guy's shooting like an arrow with a torch on the end to burn some sort of a VC friggin' something on the side of the river. But anyway, point being is that they're recruiting, I think, just more for that program now specifically. So people are coming in for it, which is pretty cool, I think.
Oh, got you. Speaking of movies, that is the Act of Valor. What an incredible recruiting tool.
Yeah, not bad.
You know what I mean? Not bad. Like there's always some cool high speed commercials out there for the different branches, the different units in those branches, whatever that is. But like that one maybe takes a cake.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that was had a lot of support from the military, unlike The Terminal List, which you were in, by the way, playing the HRT FBI hostage rescue team leader, which was awesome. So cool that you would take the time to be involved. Awesome. So thank you for doing that.
What are you talking about, bro? That was an honor, man. And I'd earned that spot. I was scratching and clawing for that, man. Like I wanted to be a part of the project, dude. It's incredible.
Too cool.
I just love being a part of not only like authentic stuff that is like authentically from us. I mean, like, because obviously like that's that is a story that you created, a world that you created based on a lot of experiences and your personal time there. But that's always like so much more. I don't know. It's just hard to top that, whether it's something you're just reading or something you're seeing on screen. Like when you know what's behind it, who's behind it, that there is, whether it was their idea generally or like have a big part of putting their touches on it. Cause there's a lot of stuff that gets cranked out in the Hollywood world that, they'll get our eyes on it and we'll be a tech advisor on it and blah, 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 because they have to, or they're going to be completely lost in the sauce. But there's other ones that it's just different. Like the amount of vets, the amount of special operations, community vets specifically that were on set every day on Terminal List was like insane. I hadn't seen that at that level at all. Yeah. And a lot of that's testament to you, testament to Chris, like fighting for that, making it happen. And obviously Jared Shaw and amazing.
Yeah, I was writing an article this week, and I was trying to remember all the veterans that were involved in front of and behind the camera, and I was writing everybody out I could remember, and I was going through the IMDb page. Like, no, I couldn't even remember everybody. And I sent it to Jared and Dave DiGilio, the showrunner. I'm like, hey, who else? Was there anybody else? And trying to make sure I got everybody's name into this thing. And I was counting it up. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of people. Awesome. I mean, in front of and behind the camera. I'm sure I forgot a couple just because there were so many, but tried to get ready in this article. But yeah, active valor military, obviously they're moving carrier battle groups around. They're showing SDVs, submarines, like all this stuff. They were not that thrilled to help out with the terminal list. And I think every branch has a Hollywood liaison office for their public affairs. I think everybody has one. There's been a close relationship with Hollywood for over a century. Actually, it dates back to the early days. And because once again, there's power in popular culture, and that's a recruiting tool. But yeah, they weren't that thrilled to help out with it. I mean, I do blow an admiral up in his office, and they weren't too excited to have this show about corruption.
It's fiction, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, they weren't too happy about it, I guess, or some were, and I guess in those initial conversations, we're going to use, I think, Camp Pendleton and a bunch of assets, and would have been really cool. And then I think some other people higher up got word and were like, nope, shut that down. Which I like better, because then you're not tied. You're not tied to this thing.
No,
you have.
They're not trying to change your words.
Exactly.
Change your stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, we've got to get past that as a society, not just from the military aspect, because at the end of the day, like, especially the way we can share things today, everybody's going to get, if stuff's wrong, it's going to get exposed. Like, it's just going to happen, and so transparency and I think leaning into, authenticity and understanding in this situation, like, this isn't the reality, but could go that way or whatever. There's just a way to balance that. And I think it's a mistake when big organizations, big corporations, kind of just try to ignore it, because a lot of people are going to still see it and perhaps say, like, why weren't you a part of this?
Yeah. It's a power of popular culture.
Well, it wasn't exactly right. A good example, honestly, is MVP, which also, by the way, I don't know if I told you this yet, but like, every veteran you saw on screen was played by an actual vet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Every single one. And then even Dan Loria, the Wonder Year, the dad from Wonder Year. Like,
I was going to ask you about that, because I thought in my head, I've read that somewhere in my memory banks, and I saw him walk on screen. I'm like, no way, it's the dad from the Wonder Years. And then in my head, it immediately jumped to, I think he's a veteran. And I was going to, he
is. Yeah. He was a Vietnam vet.
No kidding.
He also played Vince Lombardi on Broadway for years, which is really cool.
Amazing. But, and he looks almost the same as he did in the Wonder Years, by the way. Dude, a little more gray, but he looks like you'd recognize him anywhere. It's not like, I know that guy from somewhere. It was immediately like, boom, Wonder Years, which is 30 years old now, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Amazing. Yeah. That is really cool. That is amazing.
It's cool. So like that, and then all the department heads, aside from my DP, every other department head, and my DP is the one who pointed this out. They were all vets as well, which is super cool. So we had so many behind the camera. I mean, this project, from a budgetary standpoint, a drop in the bucket of Terminal List. It's what you see for 5 minutes on screen in Terminal List is this movie, right? But still, like, so, and that's the only way
you got it made.
You got it made.
Amazing.
You got that. But what I was going to say was, like, the support we actually got from the NFL, because it's not exactly saying, every athlete that leaves the NFL just has this perfect life. It talks about the struggles. It talks about things that they're not necessarily happy with. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, some of these guys feel a bit tossed to the wayside and sort of ignored and dejected, and they still embraced it. So it's like, I thought that was smart and cool. And they're helping from a promotional side. There's nothing in it for them. They don't, they just want to help because I think it's a good message for their former players and for that community. And they love MVP as an organization, the charity itself.
Right.
But I was kind of surprised. At first I was like, they're probably going to hesitate here.
Yeah.
And they really didn't. And they were like, here's the shield. You can use it. Team logos, use it. You can even film it. We filmed that stuff at NFL Network, like the fantasy football, whatever. And they just opened their doors and
wow.
It was it was awesome.
That's really cool.
So supportive.
Yeah. Was it Mo McRae? Is that who? Whoa, he is fantastic. Oh my gosh.
Good.
And in that scene with Tom Arnold when he's doing the fantasy football, I think every I can say veteran who went downrange can relate to just that. He doesn't even say much. He's just there. And this face where he's looking at Tom Arnold and looking at the situation he's in, I think I shouldn't say every, a lot of returning veterans have that same kind of emotion and feeling towards what they go into as they transition out of the military. And it was just right there. And it's obviously football to now something new in the private sector, and something different. And he's trying to figure out what that is. But that emotion in his face when he's there with Tom Arnold, he's just like, what the? It was, I think a lot of people can relate to that. And not just people who have been in professional sports and not just veterans, anyone going through a transition in life, whether that's changing a job, whether that's a divorce or death of a loved one, whatever it might be. I think people, they go to that new job and it's just not right. And they know it in their heart and their soul right away. And Mo McRae, who plays Will in this thing, he's just, I mean, he portrays that so well. That was a really cool scene.
He's incredible, man. This guy, he's got some stories too. He's from South LA, you know, grew up there, played sports, athlete, but then fell in love with acting and you know, filmmaking, stuff like that. And some of the stories he was telling me about, like, almost getting that big role. And like, you know, I won't get into details on it because it's more his story to tell, but like some of these films and like these characters, I was like, oh my God, like it would have changed, you know, everything trajectory wise. And he still had an incredible career. He's like killing it. He's very talented. He does well. But at the same time, you know, it's like with a lot of these things, it's really one project, one role. Yeah, it can change a movie. It can completely change, you know, to you're no longer auditioning. You're fielding, you know, you're just doing nothing but field offers left and right. And like, I think he's like right there. And I honestly, my biggest hope for him with this project is like that sort of launches that for him. He absolutely deserves it. He's earned it. And he's amazing, man. I was recommended him by the writer-director of Den of Thieves, who's a good friend of mine, Christian Budagast. So that was one of my first roles, you know, just very, very, it was a decent role, actually. I don't want to say very small, but it was cool. And Mo was in that movie. And I met him at the premiere briefly. And I just I hit Christian up when I was getting ready to cast this thing. We're like a month out from shooting. And originally we'd gone out to some of these people I'm talking about, you know, to play Mo. And then when COVID just continued on and our budget shrank exponentially, I was like, well, I want to shoot this. I have an opportunity right now that veterans homeless shelter, the barracks there that we filmed in, you know, that's on location, real place. Wow. It was closing down and turning into something else. And they had allowed us to film there. So I was like, we have to do this now because I don't want to try to recreate that. Right. It's just too hard. It's too authentic the way that it is. Yeah. And he was like, I called him up and I was like, Christian, like, what do you suggest? And immediately he was like, Mo McRae. Nice. And I was like, really? He's like, yes. He's like, that dude is perfect. Incredible. He's like, trust me. And I hit Mo up. He was like skeptical because he didn't know me, didn't know whatever. He's like, well, let me just read the script. And he read it, and then he read it again, and then he hit me up. And he's like, I read it twice. I want to do this. Let's do it. He's like, I think this is, you know, he's like, I'm not going to lie. I was a little doubtful because you don't have a ton of experience, especially behind the camera like that. But I love the story. I love the organization, you know, emerging vets and players, and let's go. And it just happened. And thank God, man, because he was a freaking, he was a gift every day. Because even when he wasn't on camera, he was behind it coaching me. Nice. You know, the dude was great. Man, yeah, he's awesome. I hope his career gets that thing and it takes off like that. Yeah, he's fantastic. But boot camp, then airborne school, 3 weeks of I guess 2 days of training. You know, just crammed into 3 weeks, and then you go off to Q course. Is that how that goes? Yeah, went to. So since I was an 18 X-ray, it was called SOPC back then, the Special Operations Preparatory Course. So that's 4 weeks long. You're living out at the old World War II barracks on Fort Bragg, which are termite infested and infested with several things.
Yeah.
You know, hilarious. I remember staying there, and then, you know, you'd explore around when there's nothing to do. There's all these other, like, it feels so haunted there. You know, it's just creepy. It's like on the edge of Fort Bragg. And just going through these old empty barracks and just feeling the history of, like, you know, these dudes that were back there getting ready to go to, you know, Normandy or whatever that is. Yeah. And just really, really interesting. And I remember going into one and I was like, this one, I don't know if this one's been lived in. It's kind of clean. And I went back there like later once I moved off base, and it was still untouched. And so, you know, my buddy and I pulled up in a pickup truck, jacked a couple mattresses. So, you know, we had something for us to sleep in. We at our house, we didn't have to buy a new mattress. We went back, but no, but that place was awesome. It was this is some of the just the memories of brotherhood, the friendship you sort of developed through pre-selection and then selection itself. Those are some of the guys I still keep in touch with, man. And some of those guys I even went to basic training with because they had that same 18 X-ray contract I did. It's really interesting to think when people ask me, like, so some of your closest friends, guys you know stay up with that you served with, like, when did you meet them? Did you meet them, you know, overseas? Did you meet them when you got to special forces, your ODA? And some of them, yes, but like honestly, a lot of the ones I'm closest with, like basic training.
No way.
Because we had that contract and we went through. But one of those of us that made it through, you know, I don't know the exact numbers. It wasn't high. I think it was probably 10% of us that actually earned the Green Beret at the end. But we just stayed tight, you know, a lot of those guys, because it's from the beginning of basic to graduation. 2 years.
Yeah, a lot of things can happen in 2 years. Yeah, no kidding.
Exactly. A lot of things did.
Yeah, I bet. What was your MOS? What did you go in with or for? Or
I was an 18 X-ray. Or sorry, 18 Echo. Yeah. So when you sign up as an X-ray, you don't know. As you get closer, you get through selection, and you start the Q course. Then you put in your wish list, and you sort of find out before you go to. Obviously, you do small unit tactics. Just like Vietnam era, you know, infantry school type stuff. And then, or Ranger school, I should say, more like that. And then you start doing back then at least it was phase 3, which is, studying up for your MOS. I can't remember what they called it, but, so I'd put Bravo, which is weapons, and Charlie, which is engineer demolitions.
I think everybody puts those two.
Yeah, that's the problem. That is exactly the problem. Well, the dudes that know they're smart, squared away, can handle it, will put Delta, because the medics are the most badass. I mean, the Deltas they're awesome. I put Delta last because I was like, I don't want someone's life in my hands like that. Yeah. Like that's.
It's a lot more training too, isn't it? Isn't it a lot longer?
A lot more training. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And honestly, I was like, that's one thing about the battlefield that, there's levels of fear with everything, but more fear for me, like if I have to treat this person and it's in my hands, like I'm an idiot. You know what I mean? Like I'm an idiot. You can train me up all you want, but I just have that fear and lack of, I guess, confidence or belief. Like, that's one piece of the training and everything that I did that I was always so worried about.
Yeah. And
I focused on it when we did like the live tissue training with the goats. We all did some of that, not just guys that went through Delta training. I gained a lot more confidence there and like helped, but still, it was always just one of these things like, man, I don't care if I get banged up. Like I'd rather have somebody working on me than, the reverse. Yeah. So I put that last, and I didn't get that, thankfully, but I did pretty well in my ASVAB and some other tests we did. So they gave me Echo, which is, Special Forces communications sergeant. So satellite communications and whatnot. And at the end of the day, I'm glad that I did that. I'm glad that I got that because the ODA I ended up going to spending the most time with, the senior Echo was so freaking squared away that like all I had to do was make sure, the crypto was updated. Yeah. And the embitters were right. Set right and
programmed and all. Yeah,
exactly. And you coach up the rest of the guys on the team what little you can, but just he was handling all the nerd stuff that I just knew very little about. And then beyond that, I became like an honorary Bravo Charlie.
There you
So
go.
I ended up helping that team and, making charges or whatever we got to do. And, but yeah, I was an Echo. Basically.
Nice. And what language did you get? Did you guys in the X-ray program? Is it still language part of it?
Yeah. I got Korean.
Yeah,
Korean.
Okay.
I went to Okinawa first. That was my first stop with SF. So I went to 1st Battalion, 1st Special Forces Group. And I wasn't there super long. I ended up moving to 10th Group after that. And that's when I would deploy with 10th Group. But yeah, I got Korean. I didn't pick it, but
so you got Korean and went to 10th Group. Interesting. Because when you take Korean, first group. Okay,
first group first.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I went to Okinawa first, and then I'll be honest, we can talk about it here, and it's all good. I went to very early on. I'd only been there like 3 months, and I found out I was about to go on this year-long rotation to the Philippines. Wasn't super psyched about that. I wanted to go to Iraq, wanted to go to Afghanistan, and I wanted to go to war. I mean, that's why I signed up. Why a lot of us did, and looking back, selfish of me to try to fight for that, but like that's what I wanted to do. And the CAG selection cadre came and visited 1-1, and I went to the presentation, even though I was only been in the Army a little over 2 years. But I was 24, 25 years old. So I was a little bit older. And I went to it. I thought it was awesome. I had just won this battalion, PT challenge that they had there at First Group, where we had full kit on, and we climb up the ropes and do some other stuff. Then you'd run around, the entire base. And the Torrey Station there. It's like the smallest Army base, I think, in the world, but it's still pretty good size. One of the 3 fences is the ocean. It's beautiful. Yeah. And they had this cool running trip pass. We run around that thing, and I just was hauling ass. I'd won that thing, so kind of got some respect from some of the folks in the battalion and whatnot. And so I went to this presentation. I already had my what is it, SF-86? I'm trying to think of the paperwork to get your TS, SCI clearance. I think that's what it is.
I think that's right.
Filled all that stuff out. That was in process. And I go to this deal and talk to one of the dudes afterwards. There wasn't a ton of people that went to the presentation. And he was like, look, I mean, you're super green. You should apply. Why not? But the reality is, Army time wise, I don't think anybody as young as you has gone. There's people that have been younger in age, but they joined. Yeah. They were in Ranger Battalion at 18, and they got 4 deployments under their belt already. Yeah. So maybe they're only 23, but So I just submitted, and a couple weeks before selection, a spot opened up, and they hit me up and just said, "You're going." And I remember I went into the battalion, the battalion sergeant major and the battalion commander both had, brought me in to talk to me before I went. Battalion commander was like, "Go get it, son." Battalion sergeant major was like, "You better get selected. Wow. If you don't get selected, it's not going to be fun back here. Just letting you know." He's like, "Good luck." I mean, it was encouragement. Yeah, words of encouragement in a way, but he was just like, "Don't embarrass us, and just don't let us down." I mean, we don't really know you. We don't trust you yet. Right. You're young buck. So. Oh man. So I went. I made it through selection. I got selected, and I was. In retrospect, man, the audacity. I kind of did the same thing with this movie. That's just sort of who I am. Did the same thing with football. I didn't grow up playing football. When I walked onto UT, I'd never played before in my life, and I just tried. It's I get these ideas, and I do have in some ways this belief in myself, not necessarily with being a field surgeon, right? But other things that I could just do this. I'll find a way. I know I won't quit. I'll figure it out. And I'm glad I have that, but it also, if you're prepared for it and you're okay with it, it sets you up for some heartbreaks and some failures along the way. And I'm all good with that. So I made it through. I won't get into the details of what that looks like. Yeah. It's not really my place to say, but it's hard. It's a challenging course. There's just no question about that. And I made it. And a lot of unknowns in that one too. Dude, So many unknowns.
Yeah. But
Many unknowns.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's, it's funny. I remember somebody giving me a little piece of advice, and I don't say what it was, but they told me this piece of advice. And in that piece of advice was a clue that I didn't realize until I was out there. And I had that clue and I had that knowledge in my head. And I get to the point where, two roads diverge in a wood. And I had to make this decision. And his voice was in my head. And I'm like, this is what he was talking about. And I still didn't listen to it. And I went my way because I'm like, I think I can do it this way. And it ended up being the wrong decision. I survived it, luckily. And I think I gained some respect from the cadre for taking the path that I took. You guys can choose your own adventure with that, with what that means. But it was exponentially tougher. But I got through that, survived. I think that was part of the reason I got selected, honestly, because of that decision, and still, sort of fighting through and getting to the end. So I finished it. I got selected by the skin of my teeth, and I knew even early on from conversations with, sort of the head of that selection board, like, you're taking a chance on you, and, your odds are not good, just so you know. But, you've done everything that we've asked you to do, and, you don't have any experience, and we know that, but we'll see what happens. So go through OTC, also very challenging, not grueling like a selection situation from a physical standpoint, but just mental, and it's long days, and it's intense training, and it's very, very good training. It's the best training you can probably get. And people were getting, they were paring down our group there as we went. And I remember just like every day kind of looking around, like, how am I still here? Because the guys, by the time I did, my number did get pulled. And I was told that, I was welcome to come back at a later date, but I needed to deploy and I needed to get that experience on the ground. And they were absolutely right. I 100% did. But I just remember like looking around the room, like, how am I still here? Like, these dudes are absolute badasses. And I was in, recent Medal of Honor recipient, people can look that up on their own, but he was in my class, and, we're still good buddies. He was an absolute legend. Other legends, in that class with me that have done incredible things. And it was cool. Greatest training and experience I could possibly get pre-deployment, because from there, I went to 10th group. They asked me, I got to choose which group I wanted to go to.
So maybe not go back to that first group guy.
Yeah, no, and I love first group. I got no hate on first group. It was just,
right.
Yeah, I go back to 1-1, man. I'm going to the Philippines, and I'm probably sitting in the SIG debt for a year. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably what's happening as a comm guy.
And you have to look at that, at that Sergeant Major, like every day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. So, but I appreciate those guys. I mean, I appreciate them supporting me on going out there.
Yeah, super.
So
cool.
I got to pick which group. I said I want to go to 10th group, and they put me on a free fall team, which was really cool. I mean, nice. I wanted to have the opportunity to do that. So I got so lucky to get that, and it was a squared away team. They were deploying within a month or two. So it was.
Oh wow!
It ended up working out exactly as it should, because my main goal was I wanted to get back over there. I wanted to feel like what I was doing in Darfur, obviously in a different capacity. You're kicking doors down and trying to find the people that are causing the pain that you're experiencing when you're watching what's going on, seeing what's experiencing, helping the people that are struggling and living in this refugee camp, you know what I mean? And like, where does that come from? Like, that's the type of dudes we're going after,
And where do you go first? Where's your first deployment?
Najaf.
Hey,
went to Najaf, the Shiite holy city.
Oh yeah, I spent a little time in Najaf there. Yeah, August of 2004. Exactly. Campaign to retake the city. So what year were you there?
I was there 08.
Okay.
So right after there was the Marines were in this one. There was a huge big firefight in cemetery there. Do you remember? I'm sure you remember the cemetery. It's the largest cemetery in the world.
Yeah,
actually,
we had different sectors of the city for that campaign, and SF took the cemetery side of the house.
Right.
Right. Crazy. But you're in Najaf. Yeah, one of the Imam Ali Mosque in Old Town Najaf, one of the holiest sites in all of Islam. That was the 11 days of pitched street battles there. It was pretty
Shiite
crazy.
holy city.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So you're there. That's first deployment. So you guys have a fob out there, and you guys just going out, kicking doors, putting together target packages, working intel networks, all that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and also doing a lot of key leader engagements.
Okay.
Which are very frustrating. I mean, because it was under governmental, or provincial control at that point.
Yeah.
So we had handed that. So we did all those things, but the approvals had to go through, the Iraqi government, and that's not always the most safe bet. There's just with the corruption and it's hard to know who to trust. I mean, pretty much all of our missions were bilateral at that point too. So we're like with the Iraqi SWAT, which is their police force, and the Iraqi Special Forces, who we had kind of stood up and trained.
Yeah.
We're kind of shoulder to shoulder with those guys, and honestly, like a lot of good dudes, a lot of good dudes that really cared about their country, really wanted to see things change, really wanted to move forward. Okay. And that was one of the most heartbreaking things of this was like, it's not just people understand, like we work with, a lot of our interpreters, and that's a big talking point today, getting our troops home, the guys who work with us over there. But there's a ton of dudes, those guys in Iraq and Afghanistan, especially Afghanistan, been at war. They were at war for 20 years, and a lot of them were fighting alongside us for the entirety of that. And then to see what obviously happened there is heartbreaking. But even same with Iraq, just to know how many guys that I kick doors down alongside, you know what I mean? Who would take a bullet for me in a heartbeat. And I feel like I would do the same thing for them. Just to know that you don't know it at the time, but in retrospect, like you are just fighting such an uphill battle, and it's you're running through sand, and you're playing whack-a-mole, and you're doing all these things, but because of the way that these target packages have to go, and the way that the mission is, and just the red tape, the complications, the corruption, it's very hard to make any headway, and feel like you really are making a difference. And then there's, of course, from that, there's people that are like, well, then why go at all? Why are we there? Why did we even go? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, because of those people, to me, like, that's why I tell anybody, there's a lot of vets that feel like they wasted their time over there and they lost friends for nothing. You know what I mean? And I don't believe that. I don't believe any of it was for nothing personally. Because you tried, man. There's plenty of things in life that we give everything we have to do and they don't work out. And it doesn't, that's not for nothing. Like there's not only like lessons in that, but you're living your life and you're trying to do something you're passionate about and putting it all out there. And to me, that is the most important thing. Like that's what makes me happy. Like I just mentioned, I got cut from that unit. I got cut from teams in high school. I got cut from the Seahawks eventually. But it doesn't matter because I tried. Just to me, it doesn't matter to me because I did everything that I could. But if nothing else, from this, from this podcast, or even from the movie, or from anything that we're doing, that despite the challenges and the guys that didn't make it back, that you feel lost their life for nothing or whatever, like it's absolutely untrue. I mean, I've been cut from every team you can possibly imagine, and I've failed at a lot of things, but I tried. I think what's important is that I tried. I put myself out there. I gave everything that I had on the field, whether it was the battlefield or the ball field. And in life, like sometimes things just don't go your way. Sometimes you lose. Some things you do fail. But you're not a failure if you did everything you could, if you tried. And for those people that we fought alongside too, the Iraqis and Afghans, don't feel like you let them down, because so many of them like they're grateful that we did everything that we could, that we tried, the people that were boots on the ground and behind the gun, and we never quit until the end, you know what I mean? Until we were literally pulled out by the back of our necks and there's nothing else we can do. And if it was up to us, we'd still be there doing that, trying to figure it out, trying to fight through. And there's a lot of young people that are upset. They don't get that opportunity, that came in. And so, yeah, just don't look at yourself in the mirror or remember the buddies that didn't make it back with any like negativity towards your efforts or that it was just a waste of time and it was for nothing because you did everything that you could.
Yeah.
There's powers outside of our control that we have nothing. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing more that we can do. Yeah. So all you can do now is live on in their honor, continue to, attack life. And I think find new missions, find new challenges, find new ways to fight for those that can't fight for themselves or whatever you're passionate about. Like you can still do that. You're still that person. And people are still grateful for your sacrifice, willingness to go over there and risk it all.
Man, I like what you said there. If you fail, you're not a failure. I like the way you put that. How long was that pump to off? Is it a 6-month deal for you guys?
That one was 9 to 10 months, actually. That was a long one.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, but not as long as some. I mean, some guys, when we were there in 2004, they'd already been there a year or 14 months. They get to the airport. People are already home, like at, home station, flown early to prep for bringing everybody back. And then they get extended by like another 4 months. Brutal.
Crazy.
Brutal. And I think some of the people that went home had to fly back. And I think a couple of those guys didn't make it. Like,
oh my gosh.
It's just, I put it in the first book. I put it in the first book somewhere in there. I wove it in. Right. Because it was just, I remember being there and hearing about that and was like, oh man. But, so you come home after 10 months and then you guys do a year-long workup, or what's the time between deployments?
Yeah, it sort of depends. So, I mean, there was like a 6 month, 6 off, 6 on, 6 off schedule, for a bit. And then different, I know guys that were in the SIF, it was only 3 months, I think, at least for a while. So they were like 3 on, 6 off. For that one, so when I got to my team there before that one, they'd only been home for 6 months. They were in, I believe they were in Mosul before. And then they had just come back. I linked up with them and we went over there. And then things changed after that, though, because after we got home, kind of right at the end of our trip, I remember when we were ripping out and they had the new team coming in, there was dramatic changes there was new administration, back here in the States. And so things were just shifting and it was going very much it's transitioning into the pure train, advise, assist role.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not sure how that, continued as far as the op tempo with that team, because from there, I went over, did a what do you call this? Oh my gosh, I went to Israel.
Okay.
What is that called? What are those called?
Like an exchange or something, or a
yeah. Like a not an FTX, but yeah, like a
exchange. Let's call it an exchange. Yeah, or something.
Yeah, it is called an exchange. With the it was cool with the Sarah and Sunhanim, which is Israeli special forces.
That's awesome. That's what I always wanted. That's the one thing I didn't get. I really wanted to do in the military was go over to Israel and do some sort of an exchange program. Right. Never got to do it. But that's amazing. Yeah. That is really cool. You got to do that.
It was so cool. So we were there for a couple of months, and every day we're going up to their to their ranges, and I mean, dude, I remember watching their dogs work. Just the Israeli service dogs, unreal. And I know we have incredible, dogs in our units as well, but I just hadn't seen it at that level, and just the intelligence of them, like in this huge mount site they had built that just had, and these dogs are like, they're just so switched on, finding everything, like never taking the same path twice, like crazy stuff. I was
That's cool.
Like, this is just next level. And they don't have the same, resources that we have. I mean, those guys don't get paid anything. you know, I mean, there's conscription there and all that. So they get, you know, paid very little. And like, you're seeing where they're sleeping. I mean, their barracks are tents outside with a cot, you know what I mean? And like, they're staying there. And, I mean, they're living in it's in, you know, it's on their home soil. It's just so interesting, but they're so efficient at everything that they do, you know, the way that they move, because of that. Like, we just don't have any time or money to waste like we have to do. So everything, you know, their gear, it's just very like, this is what's necessary. You know, there's no extra stuff bouncing around, hanging off their kit. You know, I love that. That's kind of how I was. I was always like a minimalist. Yeah. And just really cool. I mean, they were awesome. That was an awesome experience. Yeah. So that was my last. I did that, and then I was up for reenlistment and made the decision to go to college at that time. Do the football thing. So I transitioned into the Texas National Guard, still still with Special Forces. The cool thing about that was they knew I went to Texas. I tried out for the team.
So you just walk on. When did you decide to do this? When you're like, you know what? I've never played football before. Like, do you watch a movie again? Or you're like what's the draw to just all of a sudden walk on and see if you can play at that level?
I had this regret since high school of not trying to play football. So when I was really young, my mom didn't want me to play. And then as I got a little bit older, I was so into baseball, basketball. I remember being like 13 and I could have played if I wanted to. But I just was like, well, these guys have been playing since they were 8. Yeah. I'm not, what if I can figure it out? Like, I wasn't like a great athlete as a kid. I was a decent athlete, but just worked really hard. So I was just trying to, hang in there on the baseball and basketball teams. And like, my goal was, I want to make varsity. And if I start doing this, and maybe I won't be able to. So I just didn't play. And it like stuck with me. It just bothered me because it's my favorite sport. It's just this weird childhood regret, at 29 now.
29.
And I just decided, you know what, I'm ready to go to school finally. I do want to go to college and I'm going to try out for the football team. And I ended up, going to UT in Austin, which is a great school with a kind of a legendary, college football program. But I just was like, this is what I'm doing.
How do you even do that? You just like walk into an office one day? Like, how do you even know what to do? You just open the door and you're like, hey, I'd like to give this football thing a shot. And meanwhile, they've been like recruiting, the teams all put together. These guys are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. And you just like open the door with no football experience and say, hey, mind if I give this a shot?
Well, I didn't tell them that. I didn't tell them that was key. That was one part. I went to campus right before that Israel trip, actually. I went to Austin to visit, to see it. And I met with like the admissions office, so I was like, what do I need to do to make sure my application's squared away and all that? I'd taken some online courses through Central Texas College to build some credits up and to transfer in as a sophomore. Like they have those, a lot of colleges have that. If you take junior college in state there, it's easier to transfer in. And I banged out a 4.0, like, first one forever.
Nice.
And, to try to get in there. And so they were like, this looks good. You got to just fill out all this. And I'm like, cool. Where's the football offices, by the way? And so they point me in the direction. I go down there. I find out they're at practice. So I go out. I just walked out to practice and I walked through the open gate there and kind of just was hanging out, watching. And, there's a couple of people kind of looking over cross-eyed, corner to the right at me. And I just walked up. Yeah, exactly. I just walked up to one of them, this big dude that looked, he definitely had played football before. It turns out he's the head strength coach. His name was Jeff Madden. And Mad Dog is what everybody calls him. He has a big chain that just says Mad Dog on it. It's awesome. And very Mr. T vibes. So I go up and talk to Mad Dog and I was like, hey, my name's Nate. I'm in the military right now, but I'm about to get out and I'm going to come to school here. And, how do you try out for the team? And, he kind of was like, he looking at me. He's like, what'd you do in the military? And I said, well, I was in the Army. And he was just like, what'd you do in the Army? And he was like, I was in Special Forces. And he was just like, gave me fist bump. And he's like, I played out at Vanderbilt. And Fort Campbell's out there near Nashville, and he knew all about special forces. He knew about a lot of the military just generally, and he just kind of took a shine to me like right there, and he was like, let me know when you come back out, so we'll have you try out with the team. So came back out in the spring after I got done with the military. I had like 80 days of terminal leave stacked up. So I got out a little earlier and just in time to start the spring semester, and just went out there during that first week, and they had tryouts, and tryouts didn't even consist of nothing in pads. It was pure smoke sesh and just like dudes puking left and right, people quitting.
Really?
You mentioned that, 18 to 21, they are young guys. And a lot of them were good high school players, because those guys they had to also send in high school tape and have referrals from their coaches saying like, he could play here.
Right.
But me, I didn't have any high school tape, obviously. And they didn't ask because they knew I was the guy that was in the military. So I just kind of skirted that thing. And I was in really good condition because of the Army, and because of special forces. So my endurance was way up. I wasn't this was nothing. I mean, it was hard, we were running suicides and, doing all kinds of stuff like that. And it was hot. I mean, it's in the Texas heat, humid, even in the winter time.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was, I made it purely because of that. They're like, well, he's going to be added value to the locker room. He's got, he's got this kind of, he's going to have that no quit attitude. We'll be able to put him on scout team and he'll have no problem getting run over and bouncing right back up, So, this guy's exactly what we need for that. And so I walked on as a safety, quickly realized I would probably never make it on the field because of my lack of speed and, an ability to cover a wide receiver. And so after that first year, I started long snapping, and I had, like I said, I went back into the Texas National Guard, and I sort of worked out this deal where I would be available to deploy. It was 108 days. I had this window. I would take if I took finals as early as I could. I would take them a little bit early, and then they'd get me back for training camp. The day training camp starts, and so for 108 days, I went to Afghanistan, and I went over there. And like taught myself to long snap when I was there, like built the target out of plywood, and was just like hiking balls through my legs from 15 yards, the punts and field goals and extra points. Because that first year, the starter and the backup had graduated, and I was like, well, there's a thankless job. There's an opportunity to like find the field if I can figure this long snapping thing out. And they'd recruited somebody else to do it that was coming in and all this other stuff, but it's one of those skills, much like shooting the pistol on the flat range, from the holster all the way up to putting it in the box to full presentation. Like there's little pieces to the movement, to trigger squeeze, to front side post, like all these little things that you practice one component of, for hours before you ever put a round in the chamber, and learning how to properly do that. I kind of equated that learning to long snap. I was watching YouTube videos on how to do it, like grip and spiral. And then I would like obsess over getting all that, my stance, getting all that stuff perfect. And then eventually like the velocity came and I was able to, I was spinning spirals back there and kind of getting the hang of it. Came back from that deployment. Because what they would do, so they'd send us over in like onesies and twosies and link up with an ODA. So I'd go over there and, augment the special forces team for a bit. So I come back and at tryouts, I won the backup long snapping position, not in trials, sorry, during training camp, the backup long snapping position for the season. First game of the year, there's 101,000 people that come to our home games.
Wow.
First game of the year, that freshman that they've recruited to do it had a couple, had a kind of a tough game. And so I had an opportunity the next week to come in, and I won the job and started for like the next 3 years before we're graduating. So that's how the long snapping thing kind of came about, and that's how I found my way
that is
on the field.
Crazy. Did when you deploy again, do you have to go to augment multiple times?
I went over one more time before my senior year.
And what do they have you doing? Because you're not doing the workup with that ODA. You're just coming
not doing the workup. So like, best example of my last deployment, dude. I show up. So Admiral McCraven was a UT grad, first of all, and he was a SOCOM commander when I was in school, but he was soon to become the vice chancellor of the University of Texas system. And so I remember him being in our locker room. We just beat Baylor in like a shootout game, and he was all juiced up, and he came up and kind of asked me like, "Hey, you know, what are you doing this summer?" You know, and I said, "Well, I want to go back to Afghanistan. Like, what can I do?" And he was like, "Done, make it happen." He's like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, you know, I mean, I'd love to be a part of to augment an ODA out there, and kind of have one last dance, you know, if that's possible." And he was like, "I can do this." He's like, "I can get you there. I can get you where you need to be. You're going to have to do the rest of the work. You know, you're going to have to like, honestly, like earn the respect, and, you know, the team's going to have to accept you."
Yeah.
But, you know, it's totally possible. It's on you. He's like, if not, you know, they'll be plenty of work for you to do up there. Like, this is at Camp Moorhead.
Okay.
Out in Afghanistan. So I went over there. I get off the plane, you know, fly commercial into Kabul, pick me up at the airport in a freaking Land Cruiser, head out to Camp Moorhead, drop me off, and I go up to the chow hall, and the ODA is like, they told me that's where they're at. They're at lunch there. I go in there and just like walk in, introduce myself, and I was like, "If you need somebody, I'm here to help. I'm in Echoes. You know, I've deployed a couple of times." And they were like, "Dude, yes, like we need help." You know, they were super busy. It was kind of the last commando mission for the Afghan commandos out there. And we were busy. I mean, we were going out pretty much every day at night. There's a lot going on that rotation, and that team was amazing. I'm still tight with a bunch of those guys. We unfortunately lost one of them last year back home, you know, to his own hands, which was rough, man. Like, hell of a guy, incredible warrior, and also just a good person, man, good friend, and you know, I mean, struggling with stuff back home, you know, as we do. And over there, you know, on that rotation, we lost the Iraqi captain, the Afghan captain, leading one of the special forces team we were fighting alongside. But anyway, like, yeah, that team has become some of the closest I've been with any of the guys I worked with. And I was there for 3.5 months with them. Wow. You know, met them that day, and haven't seen him since I left. Yeah. You know, and he came back home. But anyway, yeah, it was wild. I mean, it was wild.
That's crazy.
And then to come home, they like fly you commercial back. And I like the next day I'm on the field, like at training camp, you know, like staying in the dorms.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. During training camp, they put us all in the dorms before my senior year. So I went from barracks to dorms for like 3 weeks before. Once training camp was over, we got to, you know, I lived off campus or whatever. But it's such a bizarre like transition and sort of juxtaposition. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like you're like trading literally pads and helmet, like body armor, and it's so weird. But I honestly like I loved it. I mean, I love the tempo of it. A lot of those things translate. You know, obviously, I would never compare the stakes of what's going on, and obviously, you know, serving the country and playing the game, very different. But the locker room, you know, that brotherhood, the amount of time and energy you have to sacrifice, that type of sacrifice to be elite, you know, to be great, is like very similar. And yeah, I miss both of them. I miss football. I mean, I miss deploying a lot. I really do. Yeah. But
and that was your last one? Was that your last one to?
Yeah, that was my last one. Right, and then my senior year on the field, and then I got an opportunity to play in the Medal of Honor Bowl, which is a senior all-star game out in Charleston. They don't play it anymore. It was only around for 2 or 3 seasons. Okay. But the Medal of Honor Society hosted it, which was really cool. And they asked me to be a long snapper for one of the teams during that game. So I go out there, and there's like all these scouts there from the NFL. And Yeah, they're there watching practice every day.
Were you already thinking about trying to get in the NFL at some point, or?
I've been thinking about it since I was 3 years old, man, but like not really believing that it's possible.
So you didn't have a plan while you're playing these 3 years in Texas. Like, are you thinking, oh, I can do this in the NFL at all?
No, I mean, not really believing it. Like I'm dreaming about it. Right.
Like, oh,
but like I was 185 pounds, you know what I mean? And like, I say I'm 5'11", but I'm not. I'm 5'10". You know,
5'10" and 3/4. 5'10" and 3/4.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. In cleats and a helmet, I'm 5'11". You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I go out there and I'm at practices. I'm snapping every day, and dude, I had 4 teams meet with me and say, look, you're gonna have to put on like 40 pounds
after the Medal of Honor game.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, like during the practices that week. Okay. Yeah, but you should make it. You should go for it. You should take a run at it. And this is like in January. You know what I mean? And the draft is in May. It's May 2nd, and so that's 4 months or whatever. 5 months. Yeah. So I played in that game, and I got home and I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. I put on 30, maybe 35 pounds over that time. So I got close to the goal. I mean, I put on a lot of weight. I ate constantly. 7,000 calories a day was the goal. Like, it was crazy. I was still training and still working out and still, and it wasn't all good weight, but it was necessary weight. You see pictures of me in my Seahawks uniform versus the Longhorns. I was just like a different person.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? But, yeah, draft day rolls around. I didn't get drafted. I didn't expect to get drafted, but I was hoping to sign as a free agent. And I got calls from the St. Louis Rams and the Seattle Seahawks asking if I would sign with their team. And I went with the Seattle Seahawks because a good friend of mine, Brad Keys, who I served with in 10th group, he passed away 2012. I actually talked to him the night before he died. And he was a guy that encouraged me to go to Texas and kind of go big. If I was going to go play football at school, he was the guy. He was a leader out there, like a born leader for our team. Like, this guy married a single mother who had a child with a lot of disability, and he fell in love with her, and he fell in love with that kid, before he made this decision. And he was he'd always tell people before that, like, I'm never getting married, whatever. And then, he's just that kind of person. And so I had this decision, like St. Louis Rams, who were 4-12 the year before, or Seattle Seahawks, who had been to back-to-back Super Bowls. And it was like Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson, and, these superstars on the field, Richard Sherman, so many legends. These guys will all be Hall of Famers. I just couldn't turn down that opportunity. I was like, I got to go big. I got to go for that one, even though it's going to be tougher. And I go out there and, was with the team for 5 months through the off season, through OTAs, training camp. And I got to play in one preseason game. And it was an incredible moment. I played the whole second half. I did really well, actually. But the next week were like the biggest rounds of cuts they kind of go through. And, I got cut. But biggest memories of that game was warming up on the field before game. We're playing the Broncos, and it's Peyton Manning's last year before he would go on to win the Super Bowl. He's like warming up next to me, throwing footballs, and I'm long snapping. And I'm just like, what am I doing here?
Wow.
This is crazy. You know what I mean? And in that Seahawks stadium, which is like, those fans are unreal. Like, they're so good. And it's the sun's out, but it's also sprinkling like it should be in Seattle in May. Or actually, no, this is in September or August or September. And so we're getting ready in the locker room to come out. And the equipment manager comes up to me and is like, hey, I know in college you had the opportunity to lead the team out of the tunnel with the American flag before every game. Do you want to do it for this game? And I was like, yes, that would be honored. I would love that. So he gave me the flag. I led the team out of the tunnel. I get on the sideline. The anthem starts playing. And I just started freaking bawling, man. Like, thinking of Brad, thinking of guys that I served with overseas that came home that just didn't feel they were worth a shit, or that they could do something like I was doing, even though it's like, I don't belong here. Like, I'm not as talented as these people. But I just freaking went for it, and I went all in, and I applied the same type of just drive, and like, I'm not going to quit. If they cut me, at some point it's going to end. I'm going to get cut, or I'm going to die, or at some point this thing ends, whatever we're doing here. But I'm not going to end it on my own. You know what I mean? I'm going to push through. I'm going to find a way. And they say it's going to be out of my hands. It's going to be like those things we talked about, things we don't have control over. Like, those are the things that are going to end this, not me. And I was thinking of people that were still fighting overseas, and just like, I saw all these things, thinking about my life, and like, from childhood, and this person that didn't believe they could play junior high football, Pop Warner, that worried about, and now I'm in the NFL, and I just like, that song, just the pride, I just like freaking lost it. And it was really cool, because after that happened, a bunch of those guys in the team came up to me and like hugged me. Like, they saw the emotion, and like these superstars, football legends. And they were just like, we appreciate you, proud of you. Like, this is awesome. Enjoy today. And it was cool, man. It's one of the coolest moments of my life.
That is wild. What was the difference when you're on field between college and being in that Seahawks stadium? Could you tell a difference?
Size of the people.
What about fans? What about stadium sound, energy? I mean, is it all pretty much?
So the Seahawks stadium is actually small. The UT stadium is insanely big. The Longhorn, Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium is 101,000 people. It's bigger than any NFL stadium. Yeah, but the noise in the Seahawks stadium, even for that preseason game, it was
a difference.
That is known as like one of the loudest stadiums. It's like, I think the Seahawks and the Chiefs. There's like a few teams that the decibel levels every year are just record breaking. Okay. And it's just it was very loud, and it was amazing, man. Like, I loved it. I loved every second I had up there.
But the size of the guy stands out to you. The size of the people.
Dude, they're huge. And I put on weight, but I was just like, this. I mean, there's guys in college are still fast and still pretty big, but like, just pound for pound, like, dudes in the league are just monsters. I was so overmatched, man.
Were you the smallest guy on the team by a long shot?
Not by weight, because there's some wide receivers, for instance, that are lighter, but they're lightning fast and just incredible athletes, But generally, especially on the line. I mean, I'm playing center when I'm in there snapping. It's like 320 pounders next to me. The nose tackle across from me, trying to go block that kick, is 300 pounds. It's just like, what am I doing? I'm gonna get run over with dignity, but I'm gonna do everything I can to stop you. Dude, so
that is wild. That is wild. Then where does Hollywood fit into all this? When do you start thinking about acting, directing, writing, all the rest of this?
Yeah, and I gotta go board this flight in like 2 minutes. So
all right. Yeah. Where does that come in? And I do want to say, like, a couple things you already hit on, a couple things, but when you say you loved it being in Iraq and Afghanistan, when you say that line in this film, I wrote that down. I had some notes that I was taking as I was watching the movie last night. And you said, I loved it. I don't think people really understand that. I know you got to board your flight.
Yeah. No. So I'll hit it right now. So I came home. I knew I wanted to work. I wanted to help tell our stories, man. And I did an internship at Film 44 with Peter Berg and his company, and learned some of the development side of things, right? And then through MVP, Emerging Vets and Players, that organization where we bring together combat vets and former pro athletes, and we help them find purpose and identity when the uniform comes up. The way that story, the genesis of that story is this movie. Like, that's what happened. Instead of me going down to this veterans homeless shelter, meeting some of these guys and bringing them up from the gym, we have it be the character moment Craig plays, Will Phillips, this NFL player, first year out of the league, has lost his uniform in his locker room. And then he meets this veteran who's lost his tribe and his mission and purpose, and lost a lot of guys to their own hands back home, as well as guys overseas. But he misses that. It's just like Will Phillips misses, being on the field and getting his head kicked in, and like it's something crazy. I mean, there's something off about us maybe a bit, but we missed that. We missed that intensity. The grind. the fear, we miss all of that. And that's what this movie's really about. So, to see the movie, go to vetsandplayers.org, click on watch the MVP movie. You can host a screening of your own. It's playing September 14th, which will be tonight.
Yeah, that's it.
At 7:30. And 35 markets around the country, every NFL city plus 5 others: Salt Lake, San Antonio, San Diego, Austin, and Orlando. Go see this movie. Go to vetsandplayers.org and help our mission.
Awesome.
Help us all come home and find that next journey and purpose.
Man, awesome. I know you got to board your flight. And Stallone, executive producer.
Stallone is
real quick. How did you get that? How did you become aware of all this?
Dude, he had come to MVP. He came to a session and he talked to our veterans there. I co-founded MVP with Jay Glazer.
Yep.
Jay Glazer, he's very connected. He knows his will. So Stallone had trained at his gym. He came into an MVP session. He met these vets and talked to them about how proud he was to help them change the story of Rambo so that he lives at the end. So there's hope involved, right?
Wow.
And because he wanted to play this role, and he's playing a Green Beret in the story. And so we finished the script. Braden Aftergood, who's his producing partner, used to be at Film 44 with Pete, I was buddies with, and he sent it to Sly. Sly loved it, and he's like, "Put my name on it. I got these guys. Let's make this thing."
Oh, it's awesome. That is awesome. I love hearing that story. Good deal, man. Hey, I'll let you get on your flight. You got things to do. But thanks for everything. And
thank you, dude.
Hopefully we'll meet up again in person again soon here.
We will, brother.
All right,
I love it, dude.
Thanks for everything. You take care.
Thanks, Jack.
Later, brother.
You too, brother. See you well.
A special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union. I've been a member since 1996. That is my first year in the military. And right now, when you become a member of Navy Federal Credit Union, life gets better. That's why they created a fully loaded car buying experience. I've bought cars and motorcycles using it in the past. You can finance, buy, protect, and enjoy your auto purchase all from one convenient place. They have pre-approval that's good for 90 days, so you know what you can afford while you shop. They also offer great auto loan rates. You can shop for new and used cars with Navy Federal's car buying service powered by TrueCar. You can also get exclusive member savings with Carfax, SiriusXM, and more. They're always available with 24/7 member service representatives to answer any questions. Learn more at NavyFederal.org/car buying. Credit and collateral subject to approval. Navy Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA. Check them out, NavyFederal.org. I want to thank my friends at Black Rifle Coffee for sponsoring the Danger Close podcast. I've been a huge fan for the longest time. Drink Black Rifle Coffee every day. And if you keep your eyes peeled, you will notice that perhaps Chris Pratt is wearing a Black Rifle Coffee t-shirt, not unsimilar to this one, in the Amazon series adaptation of The Terminal List. Now you can go to blackriflecoffee.com/dangerclose and use code DangerClose20 at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. Black Rifle Coffee, America's coffee. Keep crushing. Today's gear segment is sponsored by Schnees. And go to schnees.com, check out all they have going on. They have a ton of great things on their website. Check them out on Instagram. But today I want to talk about boots because I love everything that they have going on up there, but I probably have 10 different pairs of their boots. But I started with these right here, the Granites. And I love these boots. I got my first elk in these muzzleloader hunt, New Mexico, about a decade ago. These are the exact same boots right here. So they have some miles on them. They have been to Alaska after bear, wolf, moose, and I just love these boots. So if I go into the backcountry and I have some weight on my back and I'm planning on coming out even a little heavier, then these are the boots that I take. I was wearing these in Kamchatka, Russia on a bear hunt where I went to do some research for Savage Son. And for those of you who know Savage Son, that's my third novel in the James Reese series. And you know, a lot of it takes place there. And then there's a little story that I fictionalized and dropped into Alaska in that story, near kind of closer to the beginning. But these are the boots that I wore. Absolutely love these boots right here, and love all the people at Schnee's, and just can't say enough good things about them. But they are handcrafted in their Italian boot factory. That's right. You'll find no mass production machinery there. Just a team of world-class boot makers doing their thing. Schnee's only sells boots directly to you, the consumer. This means there is no middleman markup like other boot companies out there. That means that they can put higher emphasis on the materials that go into their boots, and you get more boot for the money. Higher quality materials and more boot for the money. From the leathers to the tread, every Schnee's boot is made from the absolute finest materials available, backed by Schnee's industry-leading customer service and support. If you have a question or need a solid boot recommendation for your hunt, give them a call. You'll actually get a person on the line who wears the boots and is ready to help. There are a lot of boots out there in their lineup, so definitely give them a call. Let them know what you're going to be doing, and they can make a recommendation for you. When you shop at schnees.com, that is SCHNEES.com, make sure you use the promo code JACK21. When you do, you'll get 10% off your pair of Schnee's boots and logo wear. Again, that is SCHNEES.com, promo code JACK21. These handmade hunting boots usually sell out fast, so grab your pair today. Take care of your feet. Don't compromise. Upgrade to Schnee's today. Welcome to the gear highlight portion of the Danger Close podcast. All right, got a few things to go over here today. Caleb Daniels, Commando Bond on Instagram. Man, thank you so much. Caleb is a super fan of Ian Fleming, James Bond. Really cool account on Instagram. Once again, Commando Bond, and sent me this such a thoughtful gift. All these old SIGINT paperbacks of Ian Fleming's James Bond. Look at that. I mean, these covers are just amazing. I love these old paperback covers. So Caleb, thank you so much. That was so thoughtful. And not only did he do that, he sent this sticker. This is what what Commando Bond looks like on Instagram right there. And this was very cool too. This card, look at that. I love those old movie posters. So cool. The artwork's amazing. Some of you will recognize this rifle. Yep. The Living Daylights. Oh yeah. Right there. And of course, yep. And then this, look at this. I mean, I made a comment about this, and you guys remember in Thunderball, this is Sean Connery uses this underwater, these little mini tanks on the side. I mean, super cool. And Caleb had one of these made and sent it to me. So thank you. Amazing. That's just really thoughtful and sincerely appreciated. So Commando Bond, check him out on Instagram. All right. What else is going on here? Black Rifle Coffee Company. And as I open this, badass workbench, this thing, awesome, badass-workbench.com. Check them out if you need a absolute bomber desk. They have a bunch of other cool stuff on there as well. So be sure and check them out. And here we go. Veteran owned and operated Black Rifle Coffee Company this month. Black Magic. Oh yeah. Here we go. In their subscription coffee club, exclusive coffee club membership here, a bunch of different ways to prepare, and you get a sticker in there, and there it is. Bam, Black Magic. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. They also have a monthly sticker club here, and they did some cool ones for the Terminal List show when that came out back last month. But yep, get a new set of stickers every month. So very cool. Thank you guys. And man, this is awesome as well. So Brian, and he's at TRIDOCB on Instagram, but he sent me this. So these keychains are made from the skin of actual aircraft, and this is from a Corsair 2, and he knew that my grandfather flew a Corsair, so a little different, but he sent me this keychain from the skin of a Corsair 2. So very thoughtful note. So Thank you so much once again at TRIDOCB. So, Brian, thank you. Much appreciated. And the crew out, Jackson Police Department, Jackson, Wyoming. Thank you guys. Really appreciate this, and really appreciate all you do. Thank you for the coin as well and the patch. So, yeah, dropped off some books for these guys, and they sent me this, and everybody signed the card. Very cool. So, thank you guys. What else? Boom. Send me. So go to sendmemovie.com and you can find out more about this, The Fall of Kabul, and go to Amazon Prime. You can watch the movie. If there are any profits, it all goes to the Save Our Allies mission. So Send Me Movie. It's emotional, it's powerful, and I was honored to be invited on board to be an executive producer for this. So sendmemovie.com or Amazon Prime. Go and check it out there. All right. That's it for today. Take care out there. Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. To find out more about this film, MVP, go to vetsandplayers.org. Check out the organization. Click on the film, go check it out tonight in theaters across the country. Executive producer Sylvester Stallone. You can follow Nate on his social channels, which are Nate Boyer 37 on Twitter, but definitely go to vetsandplayers.org and check that out. You can follow me on the social channels at Jack Carr USA, officialjackcarr.com. That is the website. You can sign up for the newsletter there. You can click on shop for the merch. And if you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, and also subscribe. Until the next time, take care out there. Be safe, stay strong, keep fighting.